Welcome to the podcast, Sam.
Thanks, Phil.
Mate, great to have you. I appreciate you making the trip down.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Mate, let's kick it off. Where I'd really like to start is probably taking it back to the beginning. I can only imagine yourself, two brothers, dad's dad, the dynasty that is. What was that like?
Well, you forgot my mother. So my mum's actually was a big part of things as well. So I never saw my dad really as, I always thought he was a bit goofy, like where he was always a dad that played with me cricket and swimming, and we mucked around in the pool and all that type of stuff. So I was surprised when I found out he was actually a good business person. Because it wasn't, I don't remember being a big part of our lives. He was always working hard and stuff, but I thought everyone did that. And I think a lot of people do that. And so I didn't really know much different, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I remember I remember being very surprised to find out he was very successful. I just didn't think that I thought he mucks around, and I've seen him do all these playful stuff. And I think that's one thing I learned. You have different personalities, and you can be playful in one part of your life and serious in another. And I think the important thing is to keep a bit of balance in both of those things.
And where did you guys grow up?
Brisbane. So
Queensland boys?
Yeah, we were Brisbane boys, and we sort of we had basically two homes, I think, that I lived in, maybe three.
Yeah.
But one that was the vast majority of my childhood, and it was a very happy home, and it was and that's where we grew up there. And
I do hear some pretty funny stories when Brian gets the mic and gets to talk. He talks one in particular I know about what it was like to have you boys at the auctions. And I've heard stories about the rat bags, wrestling, fighting each other. I hear didn't always go to.
Well, he can tell whatever stories he wants, obviously, and because he can say he remembers those times. I mean, I was a kid, but I don't remember much of that sort of phase. It doesn't surprise me that we would have been wrestling or fighting. But yeah, he does tell, and as Dad's gotten older, those stories become. He's it
was a bit of GST now.
It's a bit like finding these new, these unpainted masterpieces that someone leaves when they later on. But he it was a very happy time, and it was very very family, very close family.
And then sort of post school, what was the first job?
Well, when I was at school, my first job was we had this old Commonwealth Employment Service, CES. You're probably too young for that, Bill.
That's on record too. That's good.
Yeah, it used to go to there's actually a shop, like a Commonwealth Employment Service store, and used to go in there, and there was cards on the wall about who was offering jobs. And so, and you used to take the card, you used to go to the employment centre and say, look, I saw this card, can you give me the details? And so my first one was KFC when I was at school down here at Gold Coast. So
yep, okay.
We used to come on holiday on the Gold Coast a lot during summer. And it was the Mermaid Beach KFC, which I learned, it was a lot of fun. And then, but my first proper job after school was, I had a business called the Cactus Club with some friends of mine.
Yeah.
But then my first proper job was in Ray White.
Yeah. Okay. And no doubt there was a lot of pressure, and it's my opinion, but no doubt a lot of pressure to follow in the Ray White footsteps. What made the leap into finance?
So I never, I didn't think I'd go into business when I was growing up. I thought I'd do something else, and then I fell in love with it by mistake almost, and then saw when I was talking about my dad, realizing he's successful, and my mother, I didn't realize until later that they were successful. I said, well, I want to do that too. And the finance thing started because LJ Hooker was bought out by Suncorp. And the guy who ran Suncorp went to my dad and said, listen, Brian, they're obviously both Brisbane people, said, Brian, I just want to let you know I bought LJ's. We're going to spend a bucket load of money on marketing. And look, if you want to sell to us now, mate, sell to us now. And we'll give you a role. And that, of course, was like a rag to the old man.
Yeah.
He fired up and said, okay, we've got to get the mortgages. We didn't want to sell it to a bank, obviously. Mortgage broking was just starting in Western Australia. And so at the time, he said, okay, well, we're going to get mortgage broking, and you should become a mortgage broker. And I think I was about 19 or 20 at the time. No, 22, I think. And I was selling real estate then, and ended up becoming a mortgage broker.
Yeah, right. Because I always thought like it was like, how did Dad take the news, right? But he was a part of that.
Oh, he was definitely a part of that. And the other thing that happened at the time was my wife and I, Kate, were buying a home, and we were living at we weren't married yet, but Kate was living a lot at our place and at my family home, mum and dad, and we were interviewing bankers. She was interviewing bankers, and she interviewed like 3 bankers come over on a Sunday. And I remember, old man thought, my God, the bankers coming around. Because in the old days, you used to go to the bank manager and beg for the money, and now it was the other way around. So that happened, and the old Jay Hooker thing happened, and at the same time, and so that's how we got into it. And in the end, at the beginning, it was purely a way to protect the Ray White business from being disintermediated by LJ Hooker and the new entry of the banks and stuff. And we lost money for a long time. Money, and we didn't really care. It was a protection.
Yeah.
And then it became a business and something I ended up loving doing, and obviously became my full-time role.
Yeah, it's interesting. It wasn't initiated as a sort of more as a business opportunity. It was just to help play.
It was a defensive play, yeah, definitely. And then over time it became, as we learned about it and saw the opportunities with it, it became a business of its own. And I think, that's definitely my reflection.
Yeah. And then 30 years last year. Yeah, a big milestone. Obviously, you must have started when you were 14, 15.
Everyone was amazed. I said, I can't believe it happened so fast.
12-year-old opening a business. Yeah. No, 30 years is flying. So obviously a big milestone. And congratulations on that. And
thank you.
The journey, I guess, for you personally in that, going from, day one when that started, no doubt a team of maybe 5 to 10 staff. Yeah. And now maybe 500 plus. What's that been like?
It's been, at times, the whole range of emotions in that is, running a business. There are times when it's the most exhilarating thing you can possibly be doing. There are times when you're gutted and you're disappointed and you feel as though the world's ending.
Hand the keys back.
Yeah, and all the ranges of those experiences. So I think, like every business owner, that's why I really respect everyone who takes a risk and decides to employ someone and takes that responsibility on it. So it's a huge privilege and it's a big obligation. And so my journey through that's been learning a whole bunch of things. I've been fortunate to see a lot of good people. I've been inspired by people within Ray White, business owners in the loan market, external people that I've been fortunate enough to meet. So it's been a learning journey for me these last 30 years, and I'm just saying that, I know what I'm talking about. It's taken me a while, and the more I learn about it, the more I understand that it's sort of this sort of fundamental basics about it that, as opposed to really complex and complexity. Everything I'm learning now is how do I simplify it?
Simplify, yeah, because there's one of the thoughts is like how to manage. Would you say that 5 to 10 staff, would you say that was easier? Or would you say that, 500 plus, like, has it got easier? Has it got harder? Is that the problems just, the depth is still the same, just changed?
I think it's a great question. And I think it's a bit of hubris. You say, it's the most difficult now or most difficult before. I think every phase has its challenges. I don't know which one's more or less. At the time, they're all pretty significant.
Yeah.
And they're all issues that you face. I remember old man telling me once, I went to him and said, Dad, I got this problem. And I don't remember what it was, but I said it to him. And he said, that's great. He said, 2 things I want to tell you. I said, awesome.
I'm ready. I got my pen and paper. Tell me.
He said, the first thing is, I'm really glad this is happening to you. I said, okay, great. Now what do I do? And he said, the second thing is, you're going to have a lot worse days than this. And I think about that a bit to say, there are times when every time you face into a challenge, you get a bit of confidence, you learn to deal with it. Sometimes you make a mistake, sometimes you learn, sometimes you go backwards, sometimes you go forward, but every opportunity gives you the confidence to take a next step next time you be faced with an issue. And so one thing I think I feel better about now is because I've been through a few challenges in my time, I feel more equipped to face the next one. So I think it probably gets a little bit easier from that point of view. And I think you can put things in perspective a little bit more as I've gotten older. I can put things in perspective a bit better. My my wife would say that that's not entirely true, but I'm trying.
Yeah, this too shall pass.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
And one thing I used to go, you probably don't remember this as well, you're too young, but filing cabinets. And you go through these filing cabinets and you look at these files in these filing cabinets and you think, Jesus, that was such a big part of my life for like 3 weeks, and I was so stressed out about it, and it's nothing.
Yeah.
I can't believe that actually. So I think getting some perspective on those things are important. I think, being diligent around the issue you're facing, I think dealing with it in a way that, you're going to be able to look yourself in the eye afterwards and then move on.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. If we shift to leadership, how would someone had to describe your style of leadership in sort of 2 to 3 words, what would you use?
I think it depends on who's describing. So,
I was going to ask you, I actually thought about it. I was like, well, what would you say firstly? And then, would your staff or team stay the same? Right. It's sort of,
I've always had a problem with a lack of confidence. And I think I was challenged a bit around, feeling a little bit like I hadn't deserved things, and I a little bit of imposter syndrome for a while. And, it took me a little while to understand. And so I felt uncomfortable talking about myself positively, and I've gotten better at being able to do that. But I think that was a big part of my journey was being able to talk like that, and I felt bad even describing it to other people because I felt as though I should be really quite resilient and strong and confident all the time, and I believe that I do need to be that person sometimes. Even when I'm not feeling it. But that was probably a challenge I had to face into. How would people describe it? I think one thing I'm proud of is that I've been in business a long time. I think most people would say that I do what I say I'm going to do. Like I think I've got a reputation for not misleading people. And I think I think I'm seen as someone who doesn't give up. Which I think is something that is that probably towards the end of last year, people said I was pretty grumpy, and so I think I've learned also the importance of having breaks along the way. But probably they're my 2 things. I think is that I think I'm consistent and I think people can trust me, and I think I stick at stuff when things get difficult.
And you said there about like at the end of the year having a break, and we've spoken about that off camera about probably getting towards the end of the year and needing a bit of time off and maybe even struggling to get back into this year, which obviously it's great to hear that you're also human. So I do like that. But how do you motivate yourself year in, year out? Like what does it take? And then second part to that is also like, how do you do that for 500 plus staff to want to push as hard as you do and as a business and move that forward? So is it, you said about having maybe some time off, does that become a really big part of that balance?
I think 2 things I wish I did earlier in my life. One is understand the importance of sleep and exercise, which, I know it's hard to write a book about that because it's pretty obvious now. But I think sleep and exercise are 2. They've really helped. That's helped me last few years hugely. And so I think a lot about, I try to get sleep and I try to do some exercise.
Is this what
I'm not as much as you, but I do.
This is what we plug, because no doubt Kate's a huge fan of the Room to Grow podcast. So when we talk about that sauna and the ice bath setup, we're not quite there yet.
We haven't got the ice bath, but I think I'm trying to talk into getting an ice bath. But I do go to the servo and get some ice and chuck in the bath.
Got that all happening. Yeah. And so do you find, if you talk about like operating rhythms, obviously that's becoming more and more critical for yourself now because you also
exercise.
Operating rhythms around that year. If we talk about your calendar and the break time, and is it, do you find that you've become a lot more structured around that now?
So last year I didn't do that. Last year I had some holiday time, which I cancelled. I think it was about September, and then I still went from July through to December, and I didn't take any time out, and it was fairly. I should have done that. By the end of the
Started the show.
end of the year, it was really, and I was making some bad decisions, I think, in hindsight, and definitely was pissing some people off. So, I think I've learned that. But I think it's pretty obvious. I think you just need to make sure you get that in time, in early.
And sort of, obviously there's been royal commissions, there's been payroll tax we're doing now, regulatory changes, we've dabbled in politics. There's been a lot in these last 3 to 4 years coming out of COVID. How do you manage through that level of change, right?
I'm privileged to have led the company at this time because of those things. Like, I get frustrated. I'm not good with stable.
Yeah.
I like having challenges. I like things that are different. When the Royal Commission came along, it was, we talk about internally, we have this, the Victoria Cross is the highest military medal you can have. I know there's a lot of people who have different views on that, but you only get that when you're getting shot at. And so when you're in a crisis, it's a chance to demonstrate, to find out how good you are at certain things. I think it's a chance when people need you the most. It's a chance when, and I find it really energizing. So far from being like, I found the Royal Commission was one of the best times of my life, professional life.
Yeah.
Because I was doing something different. I had a really clear cause, and I had and for me, and it was a just cause. I felt no conflict or any issue. I knew what had to happen. I knew what I needed to do, and I was supported by so many in the industry. So I found that it was a privilege to do that.
Yeah.
And I think times when you're fighting something, that whole thing, people have these phrases, and I was walking down the airport the other day, and there's a phrase on the wall in Adelaide saying that, an airport, a plane takes off into the wind. You need wind. You need to be walking into the wind and getting blown back for that. And I think that whole thing about mindset is really important, that, there's always different ways to look at a problem and a challenge. But if I don't have a challenge, I'm not that good.
Yeah.
I feel blunt, and then I'm going to make one up, which, so I like having one.
Yeah, I imagine that's the same at work and at home too, right? So I'm sure Kate loves that.
Yeah. No, well, that's she's been such a huge part of our business.
Yeah.
And obviously our family.
So moving into that, actually, so with Kate sort of coming back into the business at the level she has, which has been amazing to have her involved and so active in the space, which I really enjoyed personally, and no doubt everyone has as well. But then Ruby and Max and the kids starting to make their way through, and the dynasty continues, right? So how does that feel? How you feeling about that?
I love doing it with Kate. She often has the same thing. She's not sure if what she should go to, and so she feels a bit sometimes like she doesn't want to intrude. But anyway, so she loves. It's great to be able to do it with her. With the kids, I've got 3 kids. So Meg, Ruby, Max. I was really keen. I was lucky.
And so I didn't leave Meg out deliberately. She's doing some stuff. Obviously, she's following a path and a journey, which is exciting. If Meg's listening, which she will be. So
she's in Zimmerman, and we're really proud of what she's doing there as she's a junior fashion designer, which is
exciting.
So with that, I was lucky because I never was forced to do anything. I never felt like I was required to go into the business, and it sort of happened a bit by accident, I think.
Yeah,
I'm sure my old man had a bit of a design about us. For me, I worry that if I push them into the business, that they would one day resent it, or they would, maybe they should be doing something different. So Kate and I are trying to work out how do we give them exposures to other experiences, and they love this business. Right?
Yeah.
They love going to the parties. They love meeting the people. Yeah. We have cocktail parties, at our place, and with brokers, and they both can't sleep up. They can't sleep up because they're sort of talking about so and so said this. Oh, it'd be awesome to do that, and so
I do remember a young Max. He would have been, a little while back now, maybe 12 or 13 at the time. We were at your house, and Kate had brought him downstairs to talk to you, and we were in a room, and he had been rocking roofs of houses nearby, and I remember you trying to keep a super straight face when you're having that harsh conversation with him. But they loved it so much, they've embraced it. We see them at the events, they're involved. Seeing them up on stage talking, they're now in brokers' businesses. It's been really cool.
Yeah, no, it's been really exciting to see that, and so hopefully I just want to make the right decision for them, right? And if they do decide to go in the business, the thing is they need to. They need to earn the right to be in it. They need to, start understanding the business at the coalface.
Yeah, yeah. And over that journey for you mentioned it before about the importance of sort of influence and mentors, and who's probably been one of or some of the greatest influences for you, whether that's in person or whether it's in business. Is there any real standouts there?
So I get lots of inspiration from lots of different books and things. I think my dad obviously was a big influence. My first boss in Ray White, George Hadgelis, was he was
industry legend.
Yeah, he taught me a lot of things around just being a disciplined operator and a good person. I think and a really strong ethics foundation, which built on obviously what my dad had done. And then around that, I just get inspired when you see franchise owners and business owners. They take a punt, they do something, they get something organised. We had a retreat as you led not too long ago. That was a real highlight for me to see just people just so ambitious and giving it a crack and supporting each other and sharing. Like, this didn't work for me, but this did, and I get a lot of juice out of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I think that gives me the energy. That gives me a lot of energy.
Yeah. You mentioned before about some books as well. Is there maybe a top 2 or 3 that have probably been a must-have or a must-read?
I think so. The Jim Collins stuff was, I would have said, first up. That was when I was younger.
Yeah. Good to Great.
The Good to Great.
Yeah.
Is like a classic. Some of those classic fundamentals. I think things like and the classics probably because they like the E-Myth.
Yeah.
is really good. I thought Mindset, the Carol Dweck book was really, I found a lot of value out of that. There's so many actually. I don't quite know how to.
Yeah, it's 2 good or 3. I would definitely those first 2 straight away.
Yeah.
Big impacts.
Yeah, I think how we think, especially now, there's so much talk at the moment around mental health and around the stress people are under, and I think everyone's under. I think it's a thing around society, and I think the ability to train your thinking a bit or recognize your thinking when it's going off course and course correcting, I think that's a huge skill that I would love everyone to have, like society to have. And I think managing your mindset and managing how you think is pretty important.
Huge part of it. Yeah.
And that mindset for me was quite good.
Yeah. What keeps you awake at night?
So look, in a business sense, right. I mean, obviously, the cyber is a massive thing that I worry a lot about, cyber threats and attacks, and are we doing enough, and how do we make sure we're investing in that space, and especially in an area that I don't understand as well as I would like to. AI is something that I worry about and get excited about in equal measure, and I actually some stages I really worry about a lot more for the future, and some stage I get really excited about it, and so that's been going up and down for a while. Probably the more excitement than fear at the moment.
Yeah.
There where I am.
Till we actually know what it can do, right? So we're still excited about trying to find that out.
Yeah. So that's and I think when I hear people talking about really with a lot of certainty, I start to. I think whenever you can talk certainty, I don't know if you really understand it well enough to people when they say that. I question how much they really do understand about AI, because I think it is so changing so fast.
Yeah.
And whatever we say today, in 6 months' time, it's going to be different. So they're probably the 2 big things. I I think. And then on a personal one, just like, am I spending my time the right way? Am I doing what I should be doing effectively? And am I making the most of the opportunities I have?
With that, so how do you think about, I used the words dynasty before, but your legacy in leadership in business, like what does that mean for you? What does that look like? What do you hope that to be?
I hope so. I think you mentioned about 500 staff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people and those staff are awesome. And you look at the legacy, I think it is around how I can help our business owners develop their businesses. I think we've got a lot of people who've been through a journey where they've been, some of them have been bankers, some come from, like you, come from outside of banking into broking, and now they're becoming business owners and leaders in their communities. I think that anything I can do to help that is something that I take a lot of thinking, how do we help that process, and particularly the going from practitioner to business owner, that jump. The more we can help support that, I think that's something I think a lot about it as a legacy, and the families that those businesses then influence. Look at your business now. I mean, how many guys have you got in your team?
17 of us now. So
17, and when you started up in Townsville, you're on your own.
It was me,
And you look now, you got 17 families you support in your business, and through them, lots of other businesses in your community, both here and up north. So I think it's a huge privilege to have, and I think that's something I'd love to get better at as an individual. I think as a business, that's why I'm really keen to how we promote that coaching culture better. I think it's important.
I think that you're right. Before you talk about comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10, right? And the stresses that I know I had personally in year 1, are very different to when, again, putting food on my own table, right? And now doing that for 16, 17 other households, it does very much shift the gears a little bit about what keeps you awake at night. And that we talk a lot about that broker to brokerage. And I think you guys have supported us really well in that journey, but it is a journey. There's a lot of learning in there. We've gone from, for a lot of those businesses, a 2-3x staff wise, a 4 or 5 staff pre-COVID, and we look at what's happened the last few years, and suddenly you go from 5 to 15. And before that, being a technician, or use the E-Myth as an example, right? The 3 types of people in business, and often a very good technician, but moving into management and leadership, and then the entrepreneur journey in itself, there's a lot in there, right? And so when I look at that 5 to 10 staff to 500 plus, and what that journey's been like,
it's the same journey. I still have various times. Sometimes I have 10 or 12 direct reports, sometimes 5, depending upon what the org structure looks like at a particular point in time. So it's not as though I have like 20. They then have people underneath them, and so the challenge becomes just how you get clarity. But the journey's the same, and the going from 5 to 10. I just had this discussion just this morning, which is harder, going from 5 to 10, or another number to another number, and I think they're all the same challenges. And I think it's the energy you bring to that, it's the humanity you bring, it's the and the discipline, and you're going to make mistakes. It's one thing as a business owner, like, you're going to stuff some things up, and I think the important thing is to be able to recognize that, talk about it, and through those build confidence in your team that, like, this person's, they're not bullshitting to me, that they are a human being, and they understand what they're doing.
I think it's one thing, kudos to the culture that culture comes from the top down, right? And what you've built within the group to have that. And I know the experiences we have around the retreats and the time we spend together, and the ability, whether it's 2 mil a month or 20 mil a month, to your point, we're in a room together and we're unpacking that. And we're all very much still learning. And to your point earlier, I think learning from each other, like, that's been where the real magic's been, I think. And that's a culture that I know that you've driven hard.
All those things, there's not I've never been one of those things where I haven't learned stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like, the thing when everyone learning from each other, that is a genuinely, and I think it's one of the shames about, people talk about, conferences this, and they shouldn't do that because that's a perk or whatever. I mean, getting time spending with your peers, talking about stuff you've tried, stuff you've done, how you've handled a particular problem, how you inspire each other, you make it's hugely valuable. And a lot of times that's thrown out or discarded, and almost if you're not sitting down listening to a PowerPoint presentation, you're not learning. And I think that's such a mistake, because the value is in spending time with people who are going through stuff and know what you're going about it, both for your personal mental health, but also for just picking up skills. Everyone I talk to, that's always the best value is to talk with each other rather than the presenter.
Yeah, and it is that the magic's in the room, and that behind the curtain style experience that we built with that culture of our between the low market and the BYOB teams has been really powerful, and it's probably been a huge key to not only success but surviving these last few years, or surviving and thriving, right, in a market that's changed at the speed it has.
Yeah, I'm most proud of the culture that we've got. I think that's the thing I'm most proud of.
2025, if you had to sum it up in one word, what's the theme for the year?
I don't think you can talk about a year anymore. I think you can talk about 6 months. I think the first 6 months are going to be pretty busy. We're going to have, I think it's obvious we're going to have a couple of rate reductions. I wouldn't have said that before Christmas.
Yeah.
Now it's going to, I think everyone's saying it's going to happen. So a lot smarter people than me. Got an election, and then you got this uncertainty what's going to happen with tariffs and trade, and a whole lot of macro stuff. So I think first half busy, second half I don't know.
Yeah,
and I find it really hard now to see much further than really 3 or 4 or 5 months ahead. Which might sound like a weak answer. There's a whole bunch of things that could happen. Yeah, but I think we're living in such dynamic times now. You look at AI. We've got deep speed of which, and that turned everything on its head in the space of a week. And another week later, like the key investor in OpenAI, Microsoft, was actually now going to use DeepSeek.
Yeah,
how things are changing so quickly.
Controlling 6 months is a really powerful approach. I don't think a weak answer, right? To know that we put everything we have in at the next 90 days or 6 months as a sprint. And if we achieve what we want to achieve in that period, we're probably in a way better place to attack the next 6 than we were.
I think you definitely have rhythms for the year. But I think the checking in and saying, hey, what has changed? Are we still on track with this? What will the shift, if there is a shift, what's that looking like? I just think it's dangerous to assume that 12 months is going to be the same. I think we're going into I think it's been a great January. We're recording this middle of February, just before Valentine's Day.
Cute.
And January was really strong. I think across the country, pretty much. I think we're seeing good activity for February. We'll see some drops in rates. I think that's going to be busy. Election, who knows whether that slows it down or not. I don't think it will, because everyone knows it's coming.
Yeah.
But then, back half of the year, I don't know.
Yeah, sky's the limit. Let's hope.
Yeah. It could kick on. It could be could go the other way.
Yeah. Any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
I think it's great you're doing this podcast, and this is for I think for all the business owners out there. I think it's just a call out to. There's a whole bunch of opportunities that come this year. I think the biggest thing is to, be nimble for them, be ready for them, and the other thing is just not to stop doing the stuff that has made you successful. And I think a lot of those, everyone talks about changes that are coming through. I think a lot of the other thing is what's on your keep doing list and what's on your stop doing list for 25. And I reckon that's one of the questions that I think as a business owner, you should be looking at now is in a year ahead is what are some things that really worked well? For example, I still write handwritten notes, and I'm surprised that that still has an impact.
You've got a drawer full of
I stopped doing those during COVID. I don't know why. And it's probably what I need to do the most. And I've gotten one of the things you should stop doing, and I think there's a lot of things that we all talk about we should do more of. I think the other thing is what can you do less of? How do you have less meetings? If are we just doing meetings for meetings' sake? How do you free up time? How do you free up energy in your business? There's a big opportunity to do a bit of a clean out around that.
Love it. Well, Sam, appreciate your time and appreciate everything you do for me personally, but for the business as well, for our group and for the industry. So, mate, thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Phil. Real pleasure to be here, and congratulations for putting this together.
Love it. Thanks, mate.